This is Jordan Edwards, and this is the Business Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
Good afternoon, Jimmy Pedro. Thank you for
coming on, Jordan.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, actually. Busier than I could have ever imagined, which is terrific for our businesses. Gyms are starting to open back up. People want to get back to training. Dojos are renovating, expanding, adding new mats. And then the people that have been on lockdown, we were fortunate enough to have a lot of them actually, buy stuff for their home gyms and their garages. So it was terrific.
Coming at you, my friend. Contract to buy a house, and the second I am able, you're going to be getting an email from me
Awesome.
for a basement setup. And before we get into this, I was with a mutual friend and a customer of yours, Rich Byrne, who's also been a guest on the podcast. And awesome. I was training in his unbelievable basement gym. I mean, I train there all the time, but we were there just a few days ago, and I told him that we were going to be training. We were just talking about his setup, and you have carved out quite the niche for yourself with this business. It's a phenomenal business.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So let me just give you a quick background on what this project is, who I am. So I'm Jordan Edwards. I'm the CEO of Mixology Clothing Company, family business. I've been in business for 11 years. My sister and I run that together. We have 12 brick and mortar retail stores and an e-commerce website. About 225 employees, made it through COVID stronger than when we went in. Thank God. I attribute all of that to my martial arts training, stick and move and just figure it out. And every landlord's paid, vendor, service provider, all of our employees are back. Phenomenal little business story in itself. And
awesome.
I'm also the operating partner in a family real estate portfolio. That's just my father and I. We have about 1 million square feet of property all over the country, 10 states, and about 400 tenants, all commercial office buildings and strip centers. And it was really through my real estate business and traveling all over the country that exposed me to many, many, many Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms and martial arts academies, and seeing how they're all differently set up. My home gym is Budokan Martial Arts Academy here in Long Island in New York. I train under Sensu Nardu Debra, if your paths have ever crossed. Although he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he is a major believer, and he's a judo black belt as well, but he instilled judo from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Had incredible influences in my judo professor, Harry St. Ledger, who you may have encountered in he was on the Olympic team. I don't know if your paths crossed.
Harry and I are great friends. He was on the U23 program years ago. I was the coach of the program, and I've known him since he was a little boy.
Yeah. So him and his brother Gary would frequently come to my gym, and they were both very, very strong foundationally before Harry moved out to Albuquerque. And I only had one meeting with Shintaro Higashi, but he was just that one session of judo. I will never forget it. It was a big influence on my life. And so I've been training jiu-jitsu for the past 11 years. And this whole project, I'm writing this book, Business Jiu-Jitsu, and it's about the principles that we use and learn on the mat. And they have been so influential in my life and in my business. I've had a lot more success in the business world than I ever had as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor, as always a casual competitor. But I feel as if it perfectly encapsulates what you need to do in business. You learn in that mat every night. So a little background on me. Do you relate to this at all? Have the principles helped you that you've learned in martial arts in your business?
1,000%. But if I had to choose which one I'd rather be more successful in life or in sport, I probably would pick life. But if you could have success in both, then that would be the icing on the cake, which I'm embarking on now with my career. So, but yes, without question, the sport of judo or just martial arts in general has made me who I am today. All of the same principles apply in life as it did in sport. And, oftentimes what I tell my kids is that it's not whether or not you become champion or you win the gold or you become the best in the world. It's about that pursuit. And if you pursue it with passion, you pursue it with 100% of yourself, you will learn everything there is to know about how to succeed in life. Because we know you can't quit. We know just because things aren't going well, you can't feel sorry for yourself. You've got to pick yourself back up. You've got to motivate yourself. You've got to learn from your mistakes If you failed in business or you lost a deal or something didn't go right, you have to analyze why it wasn't successful. And you have to try to implement change so that the next time you are successful, right? You've got to grind. You've got to work super, super hard. I don't care what you want to succeed in. It doesn't come from sleeping and being lazy. It comes from being motivated, being disciplined, getting up every day and doing the right things, right? And reaching out to people and contacting, whether you're trying to learn a new move, you get another, you reach out and go to a camp or a clinic or learn from a different professor. And in life, if you need help, you go to an advisor, you go to a mentor, and you ask them for help. You've got to constantly, change your business, change your mindset, and continue to climb to the top. And sometimes, it's not always going to be a straight journey, right? You're going to get knocked down. You're going to fail. You're going to have setbacks, whether it's injuries, whether it's COVID from business. There's so many parallels between life and sport. And those that are truly successful have learned from sport and how to translate it into life.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot to unpack there, but the two things that I really thought about while you were talking was grit and then constant in change and improvement. And those things are explicit on the mat, explicit in martial arts gyms. They teach it. We're taught it. Right. When you go to business school and you're an Ivy League educated man, I mean, you're an educated person, they don't teach you explicitly the grit. You might learn it from failure, but a lot of people just fail. And in the business world, it's the same thing. You might learn grit because you're beat down and you come back and you beat down. But in my jiu-jitsu practice, we're explicitly taught about the concept of Kaizen, constant daily improvement. We're explicitly taught about Shoshin, beginner's mind. And had I not learned that in jiu-jitsu, well, put it this way, I started jiu-jitsu when I was 24. Before that, it was distant. I'd already gotten through college and I didn't know anything about that kind of mindset.
Right. Yeah, without question. I mean, if you like you said, an Ivy League education, or there's theory and there's reality, right? And you can talk all the theory in the world you want. You can talk about all the best practices, but you have to be able to apply it to your business. And you have to learn, because my business may be vastly different than your business and different than what they taught in school. Much like when you go in a competition, Sensei taught you how to do it this way, but that doesn't work on every single person. You've got to adapt the technique. You've got to change the technique, or you've got to do something differently based on what their counter was. So yeah, there's a lot of theory and reality, and you have to get it by putting your feet to the fire and doing it and not being afraid to fail.
Perfectly said. How did your education, the technical aspect of business, did you recall everything, and were you able to apply the things that you learned in school directly to business years later, or did you have to kind of relearn it and get re-engaged? Things like accounting, statistics.
So I went to a proper school. My mother was a school teacher, and so from day one I was taught education is very, very important. My father was an athlete. He barely graduated high school. In fact, I think they just put him through because they didn't want to deal with him anymore. So here's your diploma, get lost. He started out as a meat cutter and working his butt off, 12, 14-hour days in a chop shop, cutting ribs and cutting meat up, and grinding. Yeah. And, he eventually went on to become a firefighter. But what I learned from my father is I definitely learned the hard work and the grit and the toughness. And from my mother, I learned use your brains, not your body, right? So I had a great balance with my upbringing. And in school, I went to because I was so successful early, I went to a very, very, a public school, and it was a very inner city school that I went to. It was a pretty tough neighborhood. It was Lynn, Massachusetts. So if you look it up, it's Lynn, the city of sin. You never come out the way you went in. So,
I went to school not far from there. I went to boarding school in Massachusetts, Cushing. Not exactly the same.
Yeah, right. Much different experience than Lynn, Massachusetts. So when I got to the high school age, my mom said, "I want you to go to this St. John's Prep High School." And I said, "I don't know what St. John's Prep is, but sure, I'll go to school. It's easy." And when I got to high school, I realized there's a whole nother world out there of book smarts and countless hours of homework and how to prepare for tests and write papers and all this stuff. So it was a great prep school. I absolutely hated it my first 2 years because it was so much work. But looking back on my career, looking back on my life, I thank my mother and my parents up and down, because that was the best, single-handedly best thing they ever did for me, was to send me to that prep school, because it did help prepare me for life, because I had to balance, a father who wanted me to compete in the Olympics in judo, who wanted me to wrestle in high school, and who wanted me to do good academically. So when you go to wrestling practice in high school and it's 2 hours, and then you go right after that to judo practice, which is another hour and a half of training, you've got 4 hours after school of training going. And then you got to figure out how you're going to do 4 or 5 hours of homework that night as well. And you get out of school at 3. So my high school schedule was so demanding that it helped set me up for life. I went on to Brown University and Ivy League education. I found Brown very easy, because I had so much free time. The difference between high school and college is you have 3 classes a day, which is 3 hours a day of school. Well, I was used to doing 6 hours of school plus 4 hours of athletics. All of a sudden, I found myself with tons of free time, but I was disciplined, so I never got behind on homework. I knew how to study because the prep school taught me how to study properly. So I found college relatively easy, for me. And obviously, I think that helped set me up for success in life. But I did take about 10 years off from the time I graduated to the time I started my real first job, because I was pursuing the Olympics for so long.
Yeah.
I was out of the work world. I was just running a club on the side, training and competing internationally, getting money from doing clinics and things like that. I actually didn't start my professional career until I was, 30 years old.
Wow. Well, that's an incredible transition point, and competing at the highest levels of your sport, medaling, and then that's a rush, that's a high that is very difficult to replicate, especially starting over essentially into the business world. I hesitate to say it's like, that must be a traumatic in a way.
A lot of there's the new movie out with Michael Phelps about the post-Olympic blues and the depression that athletes go through after pursuing the Olympics. Even those that won multiple gold medals, just because it is very traumatic, because you have such highs in your life and you're so tunnel vision focused on winning at the highest level, getting up every day with a purpose, knowing who you are, what you're all about, what your day is going to look like, what your years like. You plan everything. So okay, in January I'm going to be in Austria, I'm going to be training, and then in February I'm going to be in Paris, I'm going to compete in Paris, then I've got a training camp, and then after that I'm going to go to Germany, come back, I'll have the U.S. Nationals. Like, your whole year is laid out for you in advance, and you get up every day with a purpose, knowing what it is you're trying to achieve. As soon as the Olympics are over and you retire from sport, you have to start all over again. You're a white belt all over again, but now you're a white belt in life.
That's right.
Sure, you have a lot of these skills, but you really don't know. I mean, unless you went to school to be a doctor and you knew you were going to go into, become a surgeon or, open your own practice. If you just have a generic degree, you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life. No one's ever told you. And that is very, very difficult to deal with. And people like Michael Phelps or other superstars from the Olympic Games, they're lost. They thought they should be set for life, but in reality, I'm only 24 years old. I still have another 50 years or 60 years of my life left. That's important to have some purpose. And for me, I was fortunate that I found a job out of the Olympics that still kept me tied to sports and kept me tied to the Olympic movement, because I was the manager of Olympic sponsorship for Monster.com, which was at the time trying to help athletes find jobs post-Olympics. So it was something near and dear to my heart. It was something I was passionate about. And so it even though it was removed from sport, it was still kept me tied to Olympians and the Olympic movement. So I was excited about it. Unfortunately, after the .com crash and 9/11, the company cut back on all of its sponsorships and things like that. I kind of got removed from sport in the Olympics because the sponsorship went away. So then I just became an internet marketing guy at an internet company. I wasn't really all that passionate about it, but I did learn a ton from my mentors in terms of what marketing is all about, what sponsorship activation is all about, what brand awareness. And, I learned a lot of, industry stuff that I could take to, the business world. And then with my own dojo, and then starting my own companies and being involved in other martial arts related companies, I felt like my growth experience being in a professional work environment of a company that had, thousands of employees. I understood what it was to be a member of a big company. And I really realized that I really wanted to be part of a smaller company that I could actually, have a finger on the pulse and, help impact some big decisions that came along the way.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I've heard about your story, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out, because you're a fixture in our small industry relative size to other industries, and the path that you took from professional elite level athlete to the big corporate world to a small martial arts and then going off on your own to start your own business. It's I think that it's a story that people who aspire to be entrepreneurs need to hear. I need to understand how difficult it is to build that foundation. In a past podcast you were on, you said something to the effect of all of the work that you did leading into your business career in judo really helped grease the wheels for the introductions and all the people you learned from, and being able to pick up the phone and make a call to all of the right people in all the right gyms. But you put in the work over all those decades on the mats, going to train with people. I'm so fascinated by, what makes the man. You were on the road, going to camps, going to training, going around the world, and you build up that bank account of life.
Right.
I mean, how important is that bank account of life when you're going to start that business and you're like, who the hell do I call to sell my first mat?
It's extremely important, and it's extremely important to be an outgoing, charismatic, personable person that's just a true individual. I think I never was concerned about money. It's never about money. It's about, I've always found out that if you help people and you genuinely care about other people and you put in the time and the energy and the effort and you're true to what you say you're going to do, right? So I'm a very honest business person. I tell you, I show you all my cards. Here's who I am. Yep. Like me or don't, here's what I'm going to do for you, right? Here's how I'm going to help you. And hopefully, by helping you early and giving you a start in your gym or in your career or in your sport or whatever it is you want to do, if I was able to help you do that and I gave you all of myself, then in turn, I expect later on down the road, when you become a big, successful, multiple, owner of gyms, you'll remember what I did for you and you'll stick with me and I'll help you. And at the same time, if you need additional help along the way, you want to go start, some of these guys want to go start grappling events, and running tournaments and things like that. Yeah. Well, they remember the day that I helped them open that first gym in their garage or in their small basement somewhere. And soon enough, the guy's running, some international big tournaments now, but they stuck with you through and through because you were a loyal, good business partner that didn't make it about money, but made it about helping people achieve their dream. And if you treat business that way, I think that it's easy. It's work, but at the same time, it's fun.
So that's a beautiful outlook on life. And I think it's one that's learned, especially if there was who was that person for you? I mean, who was that guy that was generous with their time that you maybe was an idol when you were growing up? Maybe someone in business or judo. I mean, there must have been a guy.
It was countless people, countless. Yeah. I had Mr. Homa, a guy in Japan, an older gentleman in Japan who just loved judo. And I remember when my dad, early on in my career, said, I want to send you to Japan for 6 months. I said, 6 months in Japan by myself? Come on, how am I going to do that, right? So this guy, Mr. Homa, was a friend. He was a Japanese guy, lived in Japan and had an apartment and hosted me gave me an apartment to live in. And I trained in Japan for 6 months. And all I had to do every week with him was on Sundays, I had to go to the health club with him together. And we worked out for an hour. We did uchikomi, we did drills, we did stuff together on Sundays. And he helped sponsor my whole stay in Japan. And to this day, we're still very, very close personal friends, friends of the family, friends with his kids. We send gifts every holiday. I had no money at the time. And the guy helped me immensely, but I have 5, 6, 8, 10 stories like that of people that took me into their homes, let me stay with them, fed me, gave me their car to drive to training. The Troutmans in Germany was another one. I had Neil Adams in England, who's a 2-time Olympic silver medalist from Great Britain. He's currently the voice of judo, probably one of the most well-known judoka in the world, Neil Adams. I had people time and time again that opened their door and helped me. And I felt like I wouldn't be where I am today if they didn't do that for me. And how can I not do that for others?
It's amazing. And as a coach, you've done that. I mean, you've coached some of the best. Travis Stevens, who's I think your business partner also. I see him as involved with the company somehow, and Kayla Harrison and Ronda Rousey. I mean, that also, the transition from being an athlete to being such a successful coach must also kind of fill a little bit of that void in between the business world. I know myself as the CEO of a business, I'm really a coach.
Right.
That's the biggest part of my role is mentoring my teams of all these different teams. And so, did you find coaching rewarding? I mean, you must have. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just
So there's two different times in my life. So there was a time after Sydney Olympics in 2000 where I retired from the sport and I went into normal work life and I was coaching. But I had just come off a loss at the Olympics. I finished 5th. I didn't win a medal in that games. So mentally I had retired, but emotionally I hadn't. And I was trying to coach athletes. And it was very frustrating at the time because I was half in coaching and half still trying to think about whether I wanted to compete anymore. And so when I sat on the sideline for 2 years trying to coach, but I was still training in the background. And that was a hard time for me to try to coach people because I hadn't quit the sport or retired from the sport 100%. So fast forward 2 years, I go and I win a bronze medal in the Olympics in 2004. Now I'm 34 years old. I know I'm done with sport. Now I can go 100% into coaching. And at the time, I was ready mentally, emotionally. I was into coaching. It was much easier to coach then because I knew I couldn't do it physically anymore. I had to live through my athletes, and that's when my coaching, career got started. That's when I started the U23 program, which all of those athletes you just mentioned, Harry and Gary St. Ledger, Ronda Rousey, Travis Stevens, Marty Malloy, Kayla Harrison, Nick Del Popolo. Michael Eldred. I handpicked 20 kids in this country to help. And I was their lead coach that took them around the world, developmentally to, lower level tournaments. I brought them to training camps. I took them to the Olympic Training Center and I showed them this is the path of excellence. This is how you become a champion. And I lived with them and traveled with them for 4 years until I became the national coach. But then those same kids matured and they became our best athletes. So I really stayed with that group for about 12 years.
It's unbelievable. And I'm reminded of a video of Travis Stevens that inspired me so much. I think it was like some profile of him, and he was coming down to New York, up and back from Boston, up and back on the train to come train with John Donahar at the Hensel Gracie Blue Basement. And I was like, this guy is competing at the highest levels and he's slugging it out back and forth. And it reminded me of my own journey because I've been a commuter for 12 years. I lived in New York City. My office was on Long Island, and every day up and back and up and back. And I still do that till this day. But I was so inspired by him, and also made me think of you and him. And I wonder if you've read the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's the story of Nike. If you haven't read the book, Phil Knight started Nike with his track coach, Bill Bowerman, at the University of Oregon. That was his track coach. And it reminded me as I was preparing for this interview, that's one of the best books ever written. And the dynamic between Phil, who was, in his case, in his words, he was a mediocre track star, but he experimented on Bill's equipment. And now I see a parallel in our sport with you and Travis growing this phenomenal business, Fuji Mats. By the way, when I started jiu-jitsu 11 years ago, we were only allowed to wear Fuji gis. That was awesome. The respect. And you can't really see, I don't wear this gi anymore, but
that's the original.
This is the original. I have about 3 of these and they all look like this. And this means a lot.
That's 11, 12 years old. You're gonna, I hear the same story from so many people that I still have my original Fuji gi. I love it.
I have been through so many gis and so many brands, but every Fuji gi that I've ever owned, I have, whether it's retired or not. And so it is an interesting. It does. You do have a lot of brand loyalty, and they've built the Fuji brand itself. I know you came into it, but you started Fuji Mat and facility design. And as a businessman, when I see Fuji mat, but with the facility design component. To me, that's brilliant. I mean, I think just 30,000 foot view looking at the business, I think that's what makes it an incredible business, is that you also went to this facility design approach. How did that come together?
You know, my partners and I decided that we wanted to be different. We don't want to just be a mat company. You know, we have so much experience and so much knowledge in and around building out gyms that we wanted to convey that in our brand and in who we are. And it's what separates us from other mat companies. It's, you know, to most people, a mat's a mat, whether it's a rollout mat or a tatami style mat or a puzzle mat. A mat's a mat, but to us, it's not. Right? It's what it stands for. You know, first of all, I think it's a symbol of that you've made it in the sport. If you buy a Fuji mat, it's the highest quality you can get on the market today. It's also the safest product. The main reason why gym owners are putting mats on the floor is to protect their students. So when they get thrown down, they're safe. And in that instance, a mat is not just a mat, because if you buy a cheap mat, your students will get hurt. Right? So we want to make sure that you get the right mat for your application. And again, it's not about a sale. If you come to me and tell me you're starting a business and you can only afford, you know, $1,000 for your matting, I'm going to tell you, you're not ready for a Fuji mat. Go buy the puzzle mat until you have enough students. Then you can upgrade when you're ready to me. But, you know, we have so much experience in martial arts of how a gym should flow, how a gym should look, how much mat space you need for a certain, you know, training session. And a lot of customers come to us because it's new to them. It's their first project, and it's a big project. They're going to spend a good amount of money opening up their new school. They just signed a lease. They want to do it right. So a lot of times they come to Fuji Mats because they're looking for our expertise about designing the gym the right way and thinking about all of the little things that are needed. You know, some guys come to us and say, I want to do a cage. So why do you want to do a cage? Because I want to train fighters. Oh, so you don't want to make money. You want to train fighters. Like, what is it that you want to do? Are you trying to make money in this business, or is it a hobby? Yeah. Because as soon as you put a cage in there, you just wasted all that space. And now you're telling me you've got a clientele that wants to fight. But if you want to be a businessman and you want to make money first, then let's keep the cage out of there. Let's put some wall pads up. Most of what they need to train on are just mats and wall pads. And then you can bring in the sparring coaches, but keep those guys separate from your main students. You know, so there's a lot of recommendations we give along the way. And it's not just about, hey, give me a quote on this many mats. Yeah. You know, we really want to get to know what it is you're trying to achieve, and then we'll help you build the gym that's right for you.
Well, getting back to the concept of this book about principles, one of the fundamental business pieces of advice that I give to a lot of entrepreneurs that come to me is they want to open up a store. And I say, well, I want you to think about having a beautiful sign for the front of your store. I said, I can't afford a sign. I'm just going to get a banner. I said, if you can't afford a sign, then you can't afford to be in business. You need to go save more money. And I think it's a very similar thing when you walk into a gym in a facility. You want to have beautiful, clean mats, you know, that are safe and that people recognize. And when I walk into a facility and I see Fuji mats, I know that that's a strong, incredible facility. You know, the new project you did at the Upper West Side of Manhattan is unbelievable.
Awesome.
I mean, all the Renzo Gracie gyms you've done are top notch. But I love the one you did for Kenny Florian in LA, America. That was a beautiful aesthetic. I think that the aesthetic is so important. Do you help them create the aesthetic, or you make their vision come alive? How does that relationship work?
A little bit of both. Some guys come in knowing exactly what they want. They know the look they're looking for, and that they've already got it spelled out. Other people are looking for recommendations and asking us how to help. So yeah, the Upper West Side Academy, it was done by my partner, Patrick. And that place was so complicated, I can't even tell you. The basement had so many weird bricks and stuff underneath. It was super odd, but we did a beautiful job there. We've done a lot of Renzo's facilities. And don't forget, at the beginning, when it all started, and I came to Renzo's gym and I saw what he had, I said, this is one of the best jiu-jitsu places in the entire planet. Why do you have these mats on the floor? And Renzo said, I love those mats. They're just a vinyl tarp. You know, and I said, man, that's because you never had a good mat on your floor. You've just had the simple stuff, the old school stuff. And I remember when his manager came to me and said, hey, Renzo's going to get this new rollout stuff. I said, why? He goes, well, he's getting it for free. I said, but doesn't Henzo want to have the best in his facility? Just because it's free doesn't mean it's good for Henzo. They said, well, tell me what you can do. So I said, okay, well, he's going to pay for it, but here's what he's going to do. And I promise you he'll love it. Yeah. So the first gym he ever did, we went in and we did it right for him. And ever since, he's done nothing but Fuji mats.
What was the year that you started Fuji Mat Facility Design?
So Fuji Mats and Facility Design was 6 years ago. Yeah.
You have had some run. I mean, you can't turn on YouTube or watch a tournament and not see it. It's an incredible feat that you have been able to take a small niche industry and have so much growth and success. And I must say, you know, I'm worried about our industry right now with COVID. It's a crazy time. Have you guys? I know you said the home gym business. Has that been busy over the past few months?
So, you know, we weren't sure what to expect with COVID, right? But the gym business, meaning mats, the mat business is really still strong throughout the whole thing. And I think a lot of the success, it's attributed to a couple of things. Number one, no doubt people want to build out home gyms, right? They're doing their garages, they're doing their basements, they're doing small facilities where they can train with a couple of friends through COVID. And they have never stopped training those people. That's one group. The other group got a lot of money from the government, you know, or got almost free money from the government, not just the PPP loans, but the disaster loans as well. Yeah, so they're saying, we know we're coming back. I always wanted to redo my gym. I can get this loan at a very low interest rate, 1%. And let me just take the money and I'll rebuild my gym. So we've done a lot of gym renovations throughout COVID as well. So the home gym business plus, you know, the gym renovations have kept us afloat. And on top of that, like you said, you see Fuji everywhere. Well, that's because we talk about relationships, the importance of relationships in business, right? Well, the guy who founded and started BJJ Fanatics is a student of mine.
Michael Zania. Am I pronouncing that?
So he was a student of mine, judo student of mine 15 years ago. And then he fell in love with jiu-jitsu. Well, I was his first ever DVD project that he ever did because he lives in Massachusetts. He lives near me. So he and I did a DVD project together. It was the first one he ever created. And then from that, he, you know, Travis started doing them and BJJ Fanatics started taking off. I helped him build a gym inside his studio and said, hey, here's your wall pads, here's your mats, let's get going. And lo and behold, now this thing is like everybody who's anybody has done a video with Zenga and either BJJ Fanatics, Judo Fanatics, or Wrestling Fanatics. And the thing's this giant conglomerate right now. But we were really smart about every single studio he's ever put together has Fuji mats, Fuji branding, BJJ Fanatics, Judo Fanatics branding. And now he's so done big, he's doing basketball fanatics, baseball fanatics. He's got pro athletes doing all these tutorials online. Yeah. And it's just taken off. But what's helped us is that while people are at home doing nothing, they're buying DVDs to train at home. And all the DVDs they're buying are on Fuji mats with Fuji mats branding everywhere. So that marketing was just genius.
I hope you sold just an endless amount of rollout to Tommy's, you know. But in the first couple of weeks of COVID, my brother, I'm bunked up. I'm 35. I'm married. I have a baby, and I have a baby on the way. I'm living with my siblings, their wives and husbands. We're all under one house, quarantining on Long Island at my parents' house. And my brother and my brother-in-law say, we want you to teach us jiu-jitsu. Happiest moment of my life. I get a couple Fuji mats, roll out. I think I got them on another site, not your site. They arrive finally. We roll them out. We do our first class. The next night I say, you guys ready for class 2? They're like, nah, we're over that.
We're too sore. We're too tired.
But no, I'm in contract to buy a house right now. I'm leaving Manhattan. I never thought I was going to leave Manhattan. I thought I'd be there for the rest of my life.
You know a lot of people.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm buying this house in Long Island, and I've already scoped out exactly where my home gym's going in the basement, and my wife wants a yoga room in the attic. So I was like, that's it.
We've got beautiful yoga flooring too. Trust me. We've got probably the nicest. We have nice tatami mats. Yeah. Super thin, extra dense. All the colors she wants for yoga. trust me, that's the way you're going to want to go for that yoga studio.
Yeah, we're at 100%. First, I got to close. Hopefully, I'll be calling you by January, February to put that in after I do a little work on that. But no, this is it's such a great business. I'm so grateful for you sharing your time and sharing with the next generation coming up over here. I always try to tell younger people, when you invest in people, really good things happen in mysterious ways you just don't know. And my key is, yeah.
You know what's somewhat unique about our company also is that almost everybody that works for me or has a significant role in my company was also either one of my black belts or one of my students, or, is a martial artist who takes jujitsu or judo or has trained before. Like, not all of them, but I'd say 80% of the people that work for me have trained before or came from, under my system.
That's why you remind me of the Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight relationship and track. And I pray for the type of success, even a shade of this success. And you already had so much incredible success, but I truly believe that martial arts could save the world. And you are doing a phenomenal job of getting, the facilities out there for us to train. And Michael Zania and Bernardo Faria, I can't believe what they've done in such a short amount of time. I in all candor, when that first came on, it didn't register to me that could be the kind of business that they've grown it to. Jitsu was a competitor, and I thought that anybody could come and eat their lunch. But they clearly, the way that they treat people and their connections in the industry is why they're having so much success. And I look back at some of their early videos, and they weren't great. They weren't done well, put it that way. It was a white belt video. But now, I'm obsessed with their company. I'm an fanatic.
Well, you know what people didn't, they always thought that the quality, it's the quality of the instruction that's important. It's not the quality of the production that matters. At the end of the day, the martial arts people, the community, they want real, they want genuine, they don't want fluff, they don't want marketing pizzazz. They want to get right to the meat and potatoes, show me what you know and teach me everything you know. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of businessmen come into our industry from outside. And that's why you see companies like Reebok not having a lot of success in martial arts, because they're too much into the flair and the marketing pizzazz, and they're not into the real, who these people are. They just think because they're a big brand and throw money around, they're going to have success. But our community likes supporting its own community. And that's why brands that grew up with the sports end up being successful in the end. Look at Tap Out as a perfect example. Once they got bought out by a big company, what happened? Disappeared. Bye-bye. You don't see them anymore.
Well,
right?
the benefactor also passed away in all fairness to their...
Well, yeah, but they did, but where are they? Someone else could have acquired them.
A company named Authentic Brands Group, ABG, a brand licensing house owns them now. And you're right. And you're right about rock. And substance is everything. And that is exactly what we're talking about today. It's a perfect
I remember
metaphor.
I'll give you another example. I used to work for another company. I helped build that company for 10 years. And we brought in an outside marketing consulting team to help us with the marketing efforts behind that brand. And it was this they knew everything about marketing. They were very, very sharp people, very nice people, but they were business people. Some of their clients, they're talking about billion-dollar companies and things like that. They came to the first martial arts convention with us to sort of get a feel for the market and see what's going on and that sort of thing. When they showed up, all the martial arts guys are showing up in their T-shirts and their shorts and their sneakers, right? Or they're, sometimes they're business casual, but most of the time it's pretty casual, right? Yeah. These marketing guys showed up with suits and ties on, and everybody looked at our booth and said, dude, where did you get these people? Like, who are these guys? These guys don't fit in here. They're trying to sell me something. And right away, you realize that our industry is different,
Yeah, absolutely true. A mentor of mine who I've only met 2 times, but someone who's been very influential in my business, he recently said to me, you're winning by operating. And the next phase of your business that he wants to see from us is to win by building your brand. And I thought it was such incredible advice. It was jujitsu. He was grinding his shoulder into my face and challenging me to make my business better. And I think you're describing a similar thing, is that I've focused on the business fundamentals. That's what's made me successful. And this next phase of my career is going to be about building the brand and making a brand that people really feel connected to. And so I admire what you've done, because you've accomplished that so beautifully. It's really
Thank you so much.
Such a great brand. I mean, I really am proud of this brand. How far I've been there since the beginning of my martial arts career, and I had the very first pair of Fuji grappling shorts, royal blue, and they've been passed down in my dojo to other blue belts.
Those are the Kazan shorts.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, exactly, Kazan shorts, and they must be on their third or fourth person by now. They just keep making their way around the dojo. It's incredible.
That's awesome. I love those stories.
Yeah, it's great. So what's next for the brand? Where are you taking this business?
We're quickly going global. We've got a huge demand right now in the Middle East. Countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia. We're shipping stuff all over the world right now. Fantastic. And which is fantastic, right? I mean, it's just logistically it's so hard, right? Because the lead times are so long, and sometimes you're dealing with language barriers and things like that. But right now we're going global. The Fuji sports brand, to be honest with you, through COVID, we really did have a hard time. The gi and gear business, because of all gyms are closed.
Yes.
Nobody was going to we pretty much focus, 60% of our business at Fuji Sports is gyms. Yep. School owners and stuff like that. So through COVID, because they were all closed, they don't need gis, they don't need rash guards, they don't need shorts, they don't need those things. And then the people at home, how many gis do you need? How many rash guards do you need to train at home? You don't need anything new. So the gi and gear side of the business struggled a lot through COVID, and we're still only at about 60% of where we were. So we still have a ways to go. So, our focus is setting ourselves up for success come January. We've been very disciplined in our approach. We've hired all of our staff back, with the exception of 2 people, but that was one was by their own choice, and one was that we're redoing the way we do business, so we didn't need them anymore. But we've hired all of our staff back, with the exception of 2 people on the sports side. On the Fuji Mat side, we've actually expanded our team. We've hired a new salesperson through COVID. We added an additional person. But we're really trying to set ourselves up for success in 2021, because that's when we really think that everything's just going to go, not back to where it was, because unfortunately there are some gyms that have failed, right? There are some gyms that just couldn't stay shut down for 4 to 6 months and still pay their landlord their money and stay afloat. It's just not going to happen. So we understand that, but we do think that gyms are going to come back slowly but surely. We're already starting to feel it now. New York just opened today. So, we're slowly starting to see gyms come back. Some of our big customers, because we're an East Coast based company, we have a warehouse in New Jersey. A lot of our customers in New York, New Jersey, they were shut down and hit the hardest out of this whole thing. We also ship a lot of stuff to Massachusetts. Massachusetts has been shut down just as long as, New York, New Jersey. So, those 3 states, now that they're opening back up, we're starting to see a pickup back in all of our business. So we're optimistic that come, January for sure, things are going to go back similar to the way they were before.
Excellent. God bless. And I truly hope that that's the case. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to take up any more of your precious time, but I got some incredible insights today and some great sound bites for this project and this book. I hope, if you don't mind, I can call on you down the road if I have a question about anything that I might need to narrow in on. But
I was just going to tell you, feel free to contact me anytime for anything you need. If you want, a paragraph in the book, or you want to talk about anything in more detail, I'm happy to elaborate on that specific point with you and create, some content with you. And hopefully I'll get to read it before you release it, and maybe help give you a nice little testimonial.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that. I think it's going to take me about 2 years. I wrote a book a year and a half ago. This was my first book. This is it. And it was about the first 10 years of my business career and about all the fundamentals and the wins and most importantly, all of the losses. Because, oh man, there have been a lot of losses and a lot of tap outs. But Jimmy, thank you so much.